So welcome everybody at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, Nairobi Nursery. We're ready to bring you baby elephants having the milk feed at the 3 p.m. of feeding time here within Nairobi National Park. And the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust is a project that is taking care of orphan baby elephants and rhinos, and later on reintroducing them back into the wild. And that's why all the babies you're going to see here today are orphans, and all have been rescued from different parts of the country and have different reasons for being orphans. So some of them, we know what has caused them to be left orphans, and that's why we rescued them. Others, we're really not very sure. But since they were found when they are still at a very young age, all alone, without the mother to provide milk and protection, that's why we rescued them, so that we can hand raise them here for approximately 3 years. And any time after the age of 3, start to reintroduce all the elephants back into the wild. We'll always reintroduce them to Tsavo East National Park and Kibwezi Forest, a process that takes them a minimum of about 5 years before they start to make friends among the wild herds, who will later on invite them and adopt them in their families. And once they all get adopted, they'll be trained by the wild elephants on how to stay back into the wild naturally. They'll be protected against all other dangers out in the wild by the wild elephants. They'll also be warned against human beings by the wild elephants, which means all the orphans you're going to see here today at some point will have become as wild as any other elephant out there. And when we see that happen, we can successfully say we've achieved our target, because our main target here is to rescue them, hand raise them, and later on reintroducing them back into the wild. If you're joining us for the first time, the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust is a project that was started officially back in the year 1977 after the death of David Sheldrick, who was a naturalist and the senior founder warden of the large Tsavo National Park. He died in 1977. The project was started in his memory under the management of the widow, who is now the late Dr. Dame Daphne Sheldrick, who's been running the project since then until 2 years ago when she passed on, leaving the mandate to her daughter Angela Sheldrick, who was running the project together with the mother for about 17 years before the mother passed on. Right now the project is under the management of Angela Sheldrick. So the baby elephants have already started to join us, and were being led by the main matriarch in the nursery at the moment, an elephant by the name Maisha, who is approximately over 3 years old, who was rescued from Tsavo Conservation Area when she was about 8 months, whose mother is believed to have died from starvation due to drought, and that's why she was left alone. Right now she's the main leader of all the 11 elephants that we've got in the nursery, after the other big girls have left to go to Tsavo and start the process of being reintroduced. Far end, we've got an elephant by the name Ziwadi, who is approximately 2 years old. And Ziwadi was rescued from the Masai Mara. She was identified all alone within the park, without the mother and without the rest of the family members, which is not normal and also not safe. And nobody knew what exactly happened to the mother, and that's why we rescued her. And when she came in the nursery, we realized that she was going the opposite direction from the rest of the orphans, or sometimes being left behind. And later on we discovered that she's epileptic. Sometimes she goes into seizures and she's left behind. We suspected that might have been the reason to why the rest of the family members left her behind. We put her on medication. She has improved greatly, and we expect her to go back into the wild, be back to normal by the time she'll be ready to go back. We also have an elephant by the name Kiombo right over here, who happens to be the oldest boy in the nursery at the moment. And Kiombo is about 2.5 years. Kiombo was rescued from the Masai Mara. He was identified all alone within the park, within the Mara, which is not safe and also not normal for a young elephant of below a year old all alone. That's why we rescued him right now, 2.5 years old. We got another group of 3 joining us now, being led by Mukoka, the one in front. and Mukoka is approximately 2 years old. Mukoka was rescued from northern part of Tsavo East National Park, a place called Idumba. He was identified by aerial surveillance on patrol who found the baby all alone within the park, observed him for some time, hoping for the mother or the rest of the family members to come back for the baby, but none existed, which meant that he was an orphan, and being alone at 7 months, he could not have survived, and that's why we rescued him. In front of Mukoka, we've got the youngest elephant in the nursery. Her name is Naleku, approximately 1 year old, having been rescued from the Masai Mara after the mother is believed to have died from a natural disease. And that's why Naleku was left alone while at the age of about 7 months. Right now, she's approximately 1 year old. I also have an elephant by the name Maktau on my left, who is about 2.5 years, second oldest boy after Kiombo. And Maktau was rescued from Tsavo Conservation Area near a place called Maktau. He was found in a community all alone while at the age of about 3 months, which is totally not normal, and also being found in a community. Suspects that he might have been separated from his family by human beings, and so he's a victim of human-wildlife conflict. So this is a group of 6. We've got a total of 11 in the nursery at the moment. The other 5 will be joining us anytime now. For the milk, they know the feeding time. They all want to come in at the same time and get the bottles. They're always in a hurry to do that. But we bring them in smaller groups, depending with the number of the keepers that are ready to feed them, so that when they arrive here, each one of them has got a keeper ready to provide the milk. 2 more joining us from the park, being led by Nabulu, who is the second oldest in the nursery, assistant matriarch in the nursery at the moment. And Nabulu is about 3 years old. She was rescued from the Masai Mara. She was also identified all alone. She was very thin and very weak and very much dehydrated and emaciated, a sign that she had stayed for a long time without the mother's milk. And also at that young age of below 1 year old, they don't feed on enough greens. They're just learning. And that's why Nabulu would not have survived. She was very lucky to be identified, and that's why we rescued her. Right now, approximately 3 years old. I do have the youngest boy in the nursery at the moment, and the overall second youngest, an elephant by the name Roho, who is approximately over 1 year old, 16 months. And Roho was rescued from Tsavo West National Park. The mother is believed to have been killed by poachers, and that's why he was left alone. Actually stayed for some time without being identified, traumatized, stressed, having encountered or seen what happened to the mother caused a lot of stress to him. But he actually has calmed down, and this has been assisted by the big girls in the nursery taking care of him, always running after him and very responsible of him, why he's catching up with the rest of the group in the nursery. I do have Naboishu, happens to be the latest arrival, approximately 18-month-old. And Naboishu was rescued from the Masai Mara. The mother is also believed to have died from a natural disease, and that's why Naboishu was left alone. He's been with us for almost a month now. We also have Laro at the far end, getting her bottle. And Laro is about 2 years old. Laro was rescued from the Masai Mara or Lara Conservancy, identified all alone within this conservancy, and suspected to have been separated from her family by human beings. And so she's a victim of human-wildlife conflict. She was about 8 months when she came in the nursery. And lastly, we've got an elephant by the name Kiasa joining us. And Kiasa is almost 3 years old. Kiasa was rescued from Tsavo Conservation Area. She's also a drought victim. The mother believed to have died from starvation due to drought, and that's why she was left alone. Right now, she's about 3 years old, assisting Maisha and Nabulu to take care of all the young ones in the nursery. Therefore, Lani became a matriarch. But at the same time, a very tough matriarch, a no-nonsense elephant, and especially during the feeding time, what she wants is the bottles, and that is it. If you hesitate to give her, then you are in trouble. Here she is at approximately 3 years old. That makes a total of 11 elephants before us, all under the age of 3 years, and any time after the age of 3. It might be 3.5 or 4 years. That's when we take them to Savo. We've got 3 reintroduction centers in Savo. One is based within the northern part of Savo East National Park, with Umba Stockades. We also have the Voi Stockades. Then we also have Kibwezi Forest to Mani Springs, where the elephants will be taken to be reintroduced back into the wild. Our keepers will monitor them until the time they join a herd of wild elephants. Our orphans will decide which wild herd they want to join, whom they want to accompany with, and at what time they want to go. Our keepers will just observe and see the reaction, because every day they are let out in the park, interacting with different wild families, and every evening coming back at our stockades in Savo. When they go out, some wild herds will invite them, and so they spend the day together. Some wild herds will reject them, and so they go a different direction. Others will ignore them. Others will want to charge them. So every day is a different reaction. But after a long period, they keep on seeing specific wild herds who later on become interested in our orphans and start to make friends. And later on will be invited and adopted, and we set them free, let them become wild once again. We are also lucky to note that some of the orphans that have already become wild and have stayed in the wild for some time or some years have come back at our base in Savo with the newborn wild babies, which means the reintroduction is very successful. And that is why the ones that have already become wild have interacted with the wild bulls and have managed to give birth to newborn wild babies. And so it is a success story to tell when we see our newborn wild babies coming back, being brought by the mothers at our base. The mothers will always bring the newborn wild babies at our stockades in Savo, because elephants are very smart, they're very intelligent, they've got a perfect memory. They remember where they were brought up, who took care of them. And that is why they always want to be associated with the keepers as the good people, because they can remember what they did to them. As we say, they're very smart and they'll remember everything that happens to them. And that's why while taking care of them, one has to be very careful. One has to love them and not just to be interested in the work. Because if you don't, then you don't become their friend. Your work becomes very difficult. And that is why you only have to be committed in order to work with the baby elephants. They've all finished the bottles, and the milk we feed them is not an elephant's milk. Not an elephant's milk, because it is not very easy to milk a wild elephant and get the real milk. And also at the same time, we cannot feed them on cow's milk, since cow's milk has got lots of fats, and elephants are poor in fat digestion. So if you feed them on cow's milk, they'll diarrhea to death. And so we feed them on a human baby formula whose fats have been emulsified to make it easier for the babies to digest. And it took the founder of this place, the late Dr. Dame Daphne Sheldrick, about 28 years to discover that this is the right formula for them. Before that, she used the try and error method and lost most of the first orphans. But once she pioneered this formula, most orphans have survived and gone back into the wild, and that's why it is believed to be close to the real mother's milk. We've got babies coming in the nursery as young as a day or 2 days old, and have survived and gone back into the wild and given birth to newborn wild babies and come back to shores. So that is why we have enough proof that the milk is close to the real mother's milk and has really worked to save lots of baby elephants who have eventually become wild. So the elephants will spend all day out in the park. We are open to Nairobi National Park. All the bushes around is part of the park. The elephants go out every day in the morning at 6, always in the company of the keepers, and they come back for bed at 5. We ensure that they spend a night in a stockade because inside the national park we've got other wild animals like the lions and the hyenas, which is very dangerous for these young babies. So that is why we have to keep them safe in the rooms, and that's why they come back for bed at night. The Sheldrick Wildlife Trust is not only taking care of orphans, baby elephants and rhinos, it is also actually taking care of other projects like mobile veterinary units, anti-poaching teams, community projects. We've got the dog unit, we got the aerial surveillance. And all this is done together with the Kenya Wildlife Service for the good of all animals in general. And that is why our mobile veterinary unit will go to any area that there is an injured animal, help treat that injured animal, and eventually set the animals free to continue with their own natural life. And this is not necessarily elephants and rhinos alone. Any other animal that has been found out there with any health problems, if identified, we are conducted, and our mobile veterinary unit will very fast drive to the scene or fly to the scene with our SkyVet unit to ensure that the injured animals are treated and set free immediately after treatment to continue with their own natural lives. Our anti-poaching teams will work together with the Kenya Wildlife Service rangers to ensure that there are no poachers in the parks, there are no snares in the parks, people are not burning charcoal in the parks, and the park is safe for all wild animals. Our aerial surveillance will also patrol to ensure that the same thing is happening, the park is safe for all animals. You can see we've got Maisha here rolling in the dust pile together with Roho, the keeper assisting them to dust themselves. The dust is very important for the elephants. First of all, it is fun for them. They enjoy doing it. They like to roll in the dust, sometimes in the mud if it is hot. Part of it stuck on the body protects them from being bitten by some insects and also from direct sunshine. And it is fun for them. They just enjoy doing it. When they're still young, they learn to do it using the trunk. And at a certain age, they can perfect their trunk. And that is while in the nursery, the keepers will assist by throwing the dust using the shovel to show them what to do. And when the keepers do that, you'll see most of them want to use the trunk to do it by themselves. Though at this age, they cannot collect enough in the trunk and throw it up to the back. And that's why the keepers are standby to help whenever needed. The trunk is the most sensitive part on an elephant body, as we've said before. The trunk alone has got 40,000 different types of muscles, and it is acting as the hand as well as the nose. So the elephant will breathe through the trunk, will collect food with the trunk and put in the mouth, will suck the water, bend the trunk, and blow the water in the mouth. So it is very important on an elephant. Elephants will also feed on a variety of vegetation out in the park. And when they come here, we also cut some greens, especially what they like most. But what we have here is from the current family of leaves, which is most readily available within Nairobi National Park. And elephants will always have a favorite depending with the vegetation around the area. Lara on the ground and marked out trying to play the mounting game which is a normal game for the boys, mounting on one another every now and then, just for play. Now Makta lying down in the dust pile. If you're joining us now, we are at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, Nairobi Nursery. The baby is enjoying the dust bath. Makta right on the ground. Close to Makta is Naleku. After Naleku is Laro. Then we've got Roho here pushing around with Naleku. Maisha, the main matriarch, at the end. We've got Mukoka at the far end. I have Kiombo next to me. Joining now is Kiasa. We've got Naboishu here, the latest arrival. We have got Nabulu at the far end, and Ziwadi right behind, concentrating on greens. And that is what she loves to do most, feeding all throughout the day. When she's out in the park, the others will want to walk a lot, trying to look for different types of greens. But for her, she will concentrate on what she wants, and she'll feed continuously the whole day out in the park. The others will go running for the milk, but for her, she'll concentrate on greens until when the keepers direct her to go for milk. She's one of the elephants that likes or prefers the greens more than her milk compared to all the others. So if you're joining us now, we are at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, Nairobi Nursery, taking care of baby elephants. Right now, 11 elephants in the nursery at the moment. They've just finished the milk bottles. They're enjoying the dust pile, and some are feeding on the greens. Then they go back into the park. You can see they're all together as one family, because naturally in the wild, elephants actually will stay in groups and families. They always take care of one another. And the older female becomes the matriarch or the leader in a herd of elephants, and the boys will leave their families after maturity, which is over the age of 15 years, while the females will stay together. And that's why a herd of elephants has got all females of all sizes and boys who are under the maturity period. We might have one or two bulls who are there for mating purposes, but the one in charge is the main the older female who is responsible for all the others in that herd. And that is why when they come in the nursery, they find the oldest female who becomes the mother of everybody. They all listen to the oldest female as the leader of the group. Anyone who comes to the nursery and still young enjoys the protection and the care of the big girls. And right now we've got Maisha doing that, being assisted by Nabulu. And at some point, we've got Kiasa playing the role of the matriarch, despite the other coin of a character of bullying everyone around. So if you're joining us now, we are at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust with 11 baby elephants in the nursery at the moment, under our care for the first 3 years before we take them to Savo, where we reintroduce them to different groups of wild elephants. And you might be interested in supporting the work of the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. You can do that by going on our website and help donate towards a bottle of milk. You can donate towards adopting an elephant. You can donate towards supporting the other projects that are being done by the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. like the mobile veterinary units, the anti-poaching teams, the community project, and all that will go towards the care of all animals in our country in general. And if you want to adopt an elephant, if you go on our website, you'll find out all the elephants that are under our care. If you want an elephant in the Nairobi Nursery, you go under the Nursery elephants. If you want an elephant from the Idumba Stockades, you go under the elephants at Idumba Stockades. You go to Voi Stockades if you want an elephant from Voi, or Kibwezi Forest to Money Springs if you want an elephant from these areas. They've got all the names and all the little stories. And if you adopt an elephant, we open an account for you and we'll be updating your account every month, letting you know all that is happening in the nursery. You also get a special watercolor painting, which is done by Angela Sheldrick, and that will come to you on monthly basis online. You get to enjoy or get to be the first one to learn anything that happens at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. So I want to take this opportunity and thank you all for having joined us at this 3 p.m. feeding time. Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. The elephants will be leaving us now to go back into the park for the rest of the evening until at 5 in the evening when they come back for bed or spend the night in the stockades. When they're out, we let them do what they want to do as elephants. We let them stay a natural life and browse or feed or play or sleep if they want. We just observe and see the reaction. So thank you very much, everybody. We shall be bringing you more of these live feedings on Saturday.